My name is Mark Rivard. I am a professional artist, and I began my career by illustrating skateboards with Sharpie markers, and life has taken me in a lot of interesting directions over the years. As a kid, I was constantly just curious. Art was interesting. It was something that was fascinating to me. I enjoyed making art. I started to build an audience. And as my career started to kind of build up, where I was getting into art shows, I was doing a lot of media and things like that, I was being asked to come and speak at schools. Champlin Park High School is the high school that I graduated from. And I was graciously invited to meet some of the students and work on some skateboards with some of the art students here at Champlin Park. So to be here at Champlin Park and meeting the students is a fantastic honor. I started doing a lot of work in education just through my story as an artist and bringing skateboards into schools and meeting kids and just as a public speaker. And a student of mine was just kind of we were having a crazy conversation one day. He was a senior and he just wasn't sure what he wanted to do and was putting a lot of pressure on himself. And we came up with a tagline, sort of a phrase for the classroom that year: just do rad things. It's not always all that complicated, and you kind of never know where life's going to take you. My life, I think, is a great example of finding opportunities as they find you and taking advantage of opportunities. So from that day forward, we all kind of had this motto. And eventually I started to realize it's a powerful statement. Why don't you guys all come around? We're going to sit around this table here and just we'll do a little intro. I'm going to kind of tell you my story and talk about some of my boards and what I do for a living. And education came to me very ironically. For one, I was not a great student. I learned differently. I didn't follow a very strict regimen. I've never liked having, a strict day, a schedule, things like that. So it was very ironic that I would find myself in education later on in life, because one of the things that was very interesting about having the exposure that Sharpie afforded me was that being invited into schools. So I kind of want to start just with giving you some context. I am a skateboard artist, I guess, if someone was to give me a title. I own a business called Do Rad Things and a skateboard business, and I started my business around 2007, and I've been designing skateboards since 2003.
I thought it was really amazing that there was someone from Champlin Park who had graduated and gone on to be so successful in art, and was really inspired by that.
Those students in all of those schools that I visited, they all had their own stories to tell. There was creativity just kind of oozing out of the room, and it was like, let's actually create some skateboards. And instead of just hearing me talk about it, we all have the opportunity to do it. It's not something that is exclusive to one person. So I started bringing skateboards into schools from an educational standpoint. And before that, it was, almost unheard of that I would step back into school. So it felt really, really, really great for me to be able to do something that I felt like I would have benefited from as a student. When you're thinking about what you want to make, I really think it's always going to be more interesting when there's some meaning behind it, when you do have your own story to tell on that. That's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be interesting to be able to kind of tell that story. Like I said, with every single piece of artwork here, there's a story behind all of this.
I was really excited to design my own skateboard and just my own concept for the art on the bottom.
I got excited because I would say my art style is a little more street style, something like big and cool. And I just wanted to add a bunch of designs that maybe wouldn't make sense, because I just think it's interesting to look at.
I think it's cool. I really got into skateboarding and stuff like that in quarantine. And so to be able to design my own board and paint one again, I painted one like way back when I started, but never to like this level. So yeah, I was pretty excited up front.
This board, I bought it in 1993. I learned to skate on this board right here. As you can see, it's like gripped and beat up. And very serendipitously, this was not planned. I had no idea where this would take me, but this is the first skateboard that I ever drew. And just with a black ultrafine Sharpie, just, you know, simple black ultrafine Sharpie. It was probably sitting in my mom's like office drawer. I just sketched the Minneapolis skyline. From there, I got the bug. All of a sudden, I wanted to just draw like crazy. I kept just going back to drawing on skateboards because, for one, it was just more interesting. It's different. It's not, you know, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You know, this is a cultural tool. This is something that everybody recognizes, whether you're a skateboarder or not, and everybody sort of identifies one way or another with what this is. So it had this pop art vibe to it. It had kind of a cultural aspect that was just a little more engaging than just, you know, standard sketchbook. So I started just drawing as many skateboards as I possibly could. Before I knew it, I was kind of building a career or you know, sort of a following as a skateboard artist. So there was something creative about action sports, about skateboarding and skiing and surfing and things like that. Those cultures and those brands, they all kind of had this really creative vibe to them. So I gravitated really heavily to that. And Dan Pineski, that owns Pineski's skate shop up in Anoka, he was my high school ski coach. And I remember going into the skate shops as a kid and like seeing that wall of skateboards, and it just felt like an art gallery to me.
How I got to know Mark was back in the mid to late 90s. I was Mark's ski coach. He had a different aura about him, a different flair about him. Was it his bleached tipped hair, or was it his earring in his ear? I don't know, but Mark was a very kind and easy to talk to young fellow, and I really enjoyed his presence.
And I remember bringing this up, a couple of these boards, up to Pineski's skate shop in Anoka. He said, you know, if you want, you can sell a couple of these here. And so I was bringing original skateboards and hanging them on a wall at the shop at Pineski's and selling them for $100 a piece. And the very first night I put a skateboard up there, it was another rendition of the Minneapolis skyline. It sold for $100, and I was like, holy cow, I could maybe do this.
One thing with Mark's, he did his Sharpie art, which was unique and different. And I just thought, you know, I knew him from ski racing. I always like to work with individuals that have ideas and try to support anybody that wants to go on their own, just like I did.
That was key for me. That was one of those things that's just serendipitously, again, really, really fortunate. That's one of those things that just lines up in your favor. And all of these entrepreneurial people throughout my life that have kind of helped shape where I was gonna go informed me once the art side of things started to happen. And then eventually, you know, starting my own business, it felt a lot less scary because I had been a part of it. With so many other businesses, I'd seen it.
I hope that I can get to know Mark a little bit more to see what he does, because working as a professional artist is like what I want to do. So to get advice from him would really help me later on. And especially to know that like you don't always have to take the same path to get where you want to go.
I think that it's going to allow me to be more free-flowing with how I approach the artistic process in the future. I remember when we were first getting started, one of the things that Mark said was most important for him in his artistic process is to just get started. And I think that's something that a lot of artists struggle with just jumping in and trying to get something onto the paper, onto the skateboard in this instance. And so that's definitely something that I'll remember, where it's important to always get started regardless of what the outcome may be.
I feel like it'll impact me in a way that I will do more things like this. Like I might even go buy my own board and use these Sharpies to create more designs. Yeah, I just feel like it may inspire a lot more art from here on out.
What was the inspiration for this board here?
A lot of the inspiration came from like a song and like the feeling of the beginning of it. So
Yeah.
like the boom.
You have to be able to recognize when someone is impactful in a positive way to you and be able to kind of utilize the tools that they're giving you.
after. But so I did this.
You know, and I was very, very, very lucky to have so many people throughout my life here at Champlin Park. David Engstrom, my art teacher, Mrs. Hoffman, Dan Pineski, my high school ski coach. But coupled with that, you gotta have ambition. A mentor is only as valuable as your ambition. So, you know, along with those mentors, you have to have the ambition to wanna learn something, to wanna do something. One of the hardest things to do is start. You have ideas in your head, the idea is there, you see the vision, but to actually put the pen down and start. You know, if you're a writer, that first paragraph, that's the hardest part. So to just start, that's why it's tattooed on my hand. It's a daily reminder, you know, this is my drawing hand. Every day, it's like, you can't accomplish anything if you don't start. Do Rad Things is this kind of statement, this affirmation in my mind of something positive, something that's always building towards something.